Under the dense Amazonian canopy, the city of Belém stands alive with anticipation. The morning air carries the scent of rain and earth as delegations, journalists and environmental leaders fill the narrow colonial streets. For weeks, this city, the symbolic heart of the Amazon, has prepared for the most consequential climate summit in a generation, the 30th United Nations Climate Change Conference, or COP30. Cameras flash as a motorcade approaches the entrance of the newly built Green Energy Convention Center on the banks of the Guajará Bay. Emerging from the vehicle, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva raises his hand to the crowd. His expression is measured yet hopeful, the look of a man returning to the world stage with purpose. This is more than a political appearance. It is a declaration that Brazil intends to reclaim its leadership in global climate diplomacy. Lula's arrival marks the start of a summit that will test whether nations can still find common ground in an era of heat, fire, and rising seas. The host nation has made its message clear. The Amazon is not a global charity case. It is the centerpiece of humanity's survival. Every tree felled, every hectare burned, every river poisoned carries consequences that extend far beyond South America. The voice of Lula da Silva has long carried weight in the halls of global governance. Once a metalworker who rose from poverty to the presidency, Lula's political journey has mirrored Brazil's turbulent, resilient, and deeply intertwined with the hopes of the developing world. Now, as he steps into the COP30 venue, his return embodies both symbolism and strategy. He pauses briefly for cameras, greeting local officials and indigenous representatives dressed in traditional attire. The crowd responds with applause. The chants outside Amazonia Viva ripple through the air. Inside, the atmosphere is charged. Delegates from over 190 nations fill the hall, each carrying expectations and anxieties shaped by the failures of the past. The previous climate conferences in Glasgow, Sharm el-Sheikh and Dubai produced commitments, but not the transformation the planet needs. Belém, Lula has promised, will be different. In his earlier speeches leading up to the summit, Lula pledged that Brazil would end illegal deforestation by 2030 and restore tens of millions of hectares of degraded land. His government's new plan, the Amazon 2030 initiative, integrates satellite monitoring, indigenous partnerships, and international investment to rebuild what decades of neglect have undone.
Nature is not a commodity, Lula said during a preparatory address in Brasilia.
It is a shared heritage of humanity. If we fail to protect it, we fail ourselves. Those words resonate deeply today, especially among delegates from Africa, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific regions that have suffered the front lines of climate collapse, while contributing the least to its cause. The Belém summit's opening day also highlights a profound shift in tone. Instead of abstract targets, leaders are being pressed to announce concrete funding and accountability mechanisms. The newly established Global South Climate Finance Alliance, co-sponsored by Brazil and Indonesia, seeks to redirect hundreds of billions in green funds toward adaptation, reforestation, and renewable infrastructure. Lula's motorcade may have arrived to images of calm ceremony, but the issues awaiting him inside are anything but. Behind closed doors, negotiations are already tense. The European Union is pushing for stronger carbon market regulations. The United States delegation, led by the Secretary of Energy, is under pressure to expand contributions to the Loss and Damage Fund. And China, now the largest emitter of greenhouse gases, has entered the talks, emphasizing developmental equity, a phrase that underscores the ongoing friction between industrial and developing economies. Brazil's task as host is to bridge these divides. Lula's diplomatic approach, firm on sovereignty yet open to cooperation, is built on decades of experience balancing global expectations with national priorities. His administration has re-empowered IBAMA, the Environmental Enforcement Agency, and revived the Amazon Fund, inviting contributions from Norway, Germany and Canada. As he walks through the summit corridor, Lula exchanges brief words with UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, who has called this gathering a last window of hope before irreversible climate tipping points. The symbolism of Belém is undeniable. Situated at the gateway of the Amazon River, it represents both the fragility and the vastness of the planet's lungs. Hosting COP30 here sends a message: solutions cannot be dictated from distant capitals. They must emerge where the battle for the planet is being fought. Beyond the speeches, however, lies an intricate web of geopolitics. For Brazil, climate diplomacy is also economic diplomacy. The government seeks to attract green investment, diversify energy exports, and strengthen South-South partnerships. Deals being discussed include renewable energy corridors with African nations, biofuel cooperation with India, and forest credit exchanges with Southeast Asian countries. Lula's team believes Brazil can become the world's next green superpower, not through industrial might, but through environmental stewardship. Yet critics remain skeptical. Environmental NGOs warn that enforcement against illegal miners and loggers remains uneven. Indigenous communities fear that infrastructure projects under the guise of green growth could still encroach on sacred lands. Still, Lula's arrival today embodies a broader movement reshaping Latin America's voice in global affairs, with leaders from Colombia, Chile, and Argentina also attending. The region is increasingly coordinated on climate strategy. They view the Amazon not merely as a carbon sink, but as a platform for innovation, a place where sustainable agriculture, forest, bioeconomy, and indigenous science converge. As the day unfolds, the hum of conversation fills the media centre. Reporters draft headlines, activists organise panels, and scientists prepare data briefings. Every corner of the venue buzzes with urgency, an unspoken awareness that this summit may be one of the last to meaningfully alter humanity's trajectory. Later in the afternoon, Lula is expected to deliver his keynote address, where he will reiterate his demand for climate justice, a phrase that, for him, means more than financial aid. It means the right of nations like Brazil to chart their own green transition without replicating the dependency patterns of the past. For the people of Belém, the event has already brought transformation. Roads have been repaved, solar grids installed, and new cultural centres opened. Local markets brim with delegates tasting açaí and cupuaçu, and the once quiet waterfront now hosts live performances celebrating Amazonian identity. Outside the security perimeters, not everyone is convinced. Protesters gather near the docks, waving signs that read, "Promises are not protection." Their message is clear. Symbolic gestures must translate into tangible action. Inside the plenary hall, Lula takes his seat among world leaders. Around him sit the prime ministers of Canada, Japan, and Australia, the presidents of Indonesia, Kenya, and France, and the European Commission chief. The world's cameras fix on Belém, a city once overlooked, now the epicenter of the planet's climate future. As the lights dim and the official proceedings begin, a soft voice narrates the opening film images of the rainforest breathing through mist, rivers winding like veins of life, and children in indigenous villages laughing beneath the canopy. The narration closes with a single line: "The Amazon does not belong to one nation. It belongs to time itself." That sentiment mirrors Lula's core belief that environmental protection and social justice are inseparable. His policies link reforestation to rural employment, climate adaptation to food security, and global cooperation to national dignity. Throughout the coming days, Belém will host over 70 high-level panels covering carbon neutrality, ocean protection, and climate-resilient cities. The Global Youth Climate Forum, organised parallel to the main summit, is expected to draw record participation. Lula has often said that the real test of leadership is not in signing agreements, but in leaving behind a planet that our grandchildren can still recognise. The presence of so many world leaders in Brazil also underscores shifting global power centres. For decades, climate diplomacy was dominated by Europe and North America. Now, the global South is asserting itself, demanding both voice and agency. When Lula steps up to the podium later tonight, his words will carry not only the weight of his country's aspirations, but also the collective frustration of nations long told to wait their turn. His message, aides say, will be uncompromising, that no more forests should fall to feed the illusions of endless growth, that no more rivers should be poisoned for profit, that humanity must change course before the Amazon reaches the point of no return. In Belem's humid air, as evening sets in, the sounds of distant thunder mix with applause inside the convention hall. Cameras follow Lula's calm, deliberate stride through the corridors, a visual echo of Brazil's renewed confidence. The footage may be mute, but the story it tells is loud enough for the world to hear. A nation once divided, now rallying around its greatest treasure, the forest that sustains all life. As day one of COP30 draws to a close, the lights of Belém shimmer across the river. The summit has only just begun, but the question already lingers in every conversation, every panel, every whispered negotiation. Will this be the moment when promises finally become action? The answer may depend as much on the resolve of the man who arrived this morning, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, as on the willingness of the world to follow him into the green future he envisions.